What's up, crew excellence? It's your boy Justin Strickland, and I got a fire podcast for you today. We're gonna jump into the LA situation. I'm talking about immigration. I'm talking about ICE. I'm talking about Trump, governors, how leadership is intertwined all throughout this situation. And I think it's super interesting. If you are unaware, currently there is a kind of a standoff going on in LA between ICE, or immigration officers, the president, and immigrants or people of Hispanic descent who are protesting the way they are being treated, and they basically feel mishandled by the federal government. I think that so Trump, Donald Trump ran on the ticket that he's gonna be tough against immigration, and so this is right in his wheelhouse, and he's responded with the force according to his plan. And so we are seeing kind of those tensions rise here on our own soil, and I think it has been super interesting watching how the governor of California has responded, the people of LA, and just the public in general on how they have reacted to this situation on both sides of the issue. And so I think if you stick around, I think we can grab some leadership principles from this situation. I'm gonna have 3 of them for you, and I think there's something that we're all missing that if you hang out with me today, we're gonna get to the bottom of it, okay? But before I get into that, my name is Justin Strickland, and this podcast, The Ladder, exists to develop you as a leader. We believe at the Hope Institute that when you are your best version of yourself, the world is a better place. And so every week I get on here with myself or with a guest to talk about leadership and develop you for free. And so I hope that you hit subscribe, that you hit like, that you drop a comment if you hear something that's interesting to you, and that you share with somebody who wants to grow in their capacity for leadership, because we know that you have the ability to be excellent, and we just want to put you in place to do so. All right, let's jump into the episode. Now, I kind of gave a brief overview about the current situation in LA. It's escalated. People have been arrested. There's been some looting. There's been a couple standoffs. But for the most part, the protest has been peaceful. I was just talking to Big Nate before we got hopped on, and even in the midst of the news reporting these violence, it still seems that there are peaceful protests going on in LA. So they're not all turning into burning police cars or turning into looting. A lot of the protests still are peaceful, and they are still going on. And so I think the question is, what are they protesting? And so to understand what they're protesting, you have to kind of take a step back and get to the beginning of this situation. And then I'm gonna get to the beginning of how we got here in general, right? Because I want to make sure we are understanding the kind of the nuances and the different factors at play here, okay? So this particular protest was sparked by some ICE immigration raids at places and events that were previously thought to be off limits. And so I saw one that happened near an elementary school, one that happened allegedly at a graduation. There's one and they even said they were trying to pick people up at Home Depot. And so these were things that, I think under previous administrations and immigration kind of, let's say, art of war, these were things that weren't on the board, right? They were what people believe, the general public believes, even people that voted for Donald Trump on this issue, believe that he would be hard on the criminals that were trying to get into our country or the criminals that were here illegally. And so I don't think they even thought that immigration would look this way. And if you've been to LA or know anything about LA, it's a huge Hispanic population. And so they feel attacked, and they feel like they are not being protected because they're scooping up anybody and dealing with your citizenship later in a lot of cases. Even here in Kansas, we had a situation where a guy got deported to El Salvador who was a citizen. And so they had to go bring him back. And then we're talking about millions that's a lot of tax dollars, sending somebody on a private jet. Because, these people don't fly Southwest. They go in a private jet to a different country, and then you got to go get them, put them back on a private jet. That's a lot of money of our tax money they wasted because they didn't do their due diligence. And so I think this issue is very complex. In fact, I think it's so complex that it requires real leadership. And that's why I thought it would be perfect to talk about today on the pod, because when things are easy or technical, it's easy to solve, right? If your Wi-Fi go out, you get a Wi-Fi technician, right? If your carburetor go out, I don't that's a random car part, but if your carburetor go out, you go to an auto mechanic. Those are simple fixes. When the more complex something becomes, the more leadership is required. And so this is an issue that has split the aisle, split the political divide. But I think when we look at it, it's a lot more nuanced than it is, and then we approach it usually. And so the immigration issue got to this place really because of the pendulum. When I'm with some of my friends, I talk about this all the time. There's a lot of times things are on a pendulum, and we really just need to get them in the middle. But if you've ever done a pendulum, it can sometimes be hard. Once it starts going one way, it just naturally swings the other way, and it does that. And so it's hard once it gets momentum to an extreme, not to swing it back to the other extreme. And so going all the way back to Barack Obama's presidency, I thought he had a very nuanced approach to immigration. He was tough at the border. He turned around millions of people that may not have had the correct paperwork or the going about it the correct way according to our policies. He turned around over millions of people at the border, but he also built DACA. And now DACA is a program that allowed children who were in the country illegally. They might have been born here or brought here at 1 or 2 or 4 or 5. They've been here their whole life, but they did not have citizenship. DACA provided a pathway for them to get citizenship. It was a nuanced approach. He was hard at the border, but he also realized that there are real people in our country who go to our school, that are a part of our kids' basketball teams and football teams and soccer teams, and work at some of our businesses that are American citizens by all purposes, except for they were born in Ecuador and moved here at 2, right? And so it was a nuanced approach. Well, Donald Trump got in office, and he began to be very hard. If you remember his first term, he built the wall, and he was trying to build the wall, and he was really tough on immigration. Well, Biden came in, so I feel like we were in the middle with Barack, and you could tell me if you disagree. I'm okay with that. I'm not a politician, all right? But so we were kind of in the middle. Trump came, and we swung to being super aggressive against immigration. And then Biden came, and instead of getting us back to the middle, he swung all the way the other way, okay? And we basically had open borders for 4 years. And that allowed a lot of people to come to our country, and some of them we probably shouldn't have let in, okay? And so now Trump is back in office, and it's swinging back the other way, and that's where we get to where this situation in LA, okay? That's enough politics. Let's talk leadership. So I'm gonna talk about 3 things that I think we can learn from this situation and that we can use to become better leaders ourselves. And so the first thing is you gotta focus on the main thing. You have to focus on the main thing. And I'm talking about both sides. So as the protesters, what are you protesting? You are protesting against the mistreatment of Hispanic people in LA. I think that's a worthy thing to protest, right? And so you're trying to get the attention of the public, you're trying to get attention of state government, federal government, to be like, hey, this is not right. How you're treating people. And I've been seeing stuff talking about they picking up the abuelas. First of all, that is great marketing for a protest. Whoever came up with that as a way to fight against immigration raids, kudos to you, because that is a great marketing. Because first of all, abuela is a beautiful word. I think abuela is just a beautiful word. And so the idea of masked, and ICE often looks like masked vigilantes. I know why. If you don't, you should do some research. But they often look unmarked, and they look like undercover police officers all the time. Them picking up abuelas gives me an image that goes, that's not right. Okay? And so you're protesting that. So why y'all looting Apple? Okay? You know what I mean? Just being honest, focus on the main thing. If you're protesting against the illegal searches and the mistreatment of Hispanics. Don't loot Apple. And I say this is a personal experience, right? I remember when we were protesting on the plaza when some of the schools, it's not some of the school, when some of the police shootings had happened, and I went to a protest. And I remember looking left and right, and there was a lot of people that looked like me. But then I started, as it got later, I started to see people who didn't look like me, and they were a lot more antagonistic than the ones that looked like me were. And I remember thinking like, they're escalating the situation. Like the police were there, we were talking, we were chanting, we were, you know what I'm saying? We were showing that we cared about this, we were protesting. And it was cool. It wasn't cool because we were protesting something for sure, but it wasn't violent. And then I remember, and it's called Antifa, all right? And I just, whatever, I ain't scared of you. So it's called Antifa, and they start showing up to the protest. And I remember seeing them, they were climbing on top of roofs of buildings, they were spray painting stuff. And I remember thinking, this is gonna seem like this protest turned violent, but it was people who came here to enact or to incite chaos that did just that. And so I don't know if that's what's happening in LA. That could be the case, but my stance is still the same. Focus on the main thing. Like, don't get caught up in something that's not the main point, because you can lose your momentum when you get into an argument that's secondary. Okay, and that same thing for immigration, right? If your job as immigration, or not your job, is your focus for immigration officers, for ICE officers, is to get illegal immigrants out of this country that have criminal histories, which is what they've said, right? That have criminal histories. Focus on that. Don't just start scooping people up, all right? Because what's going to happen, because I think most people would agree with you. We don't want M13 gangsters in our country, right? We don't want all these different factions of just criminal activity in this country. I think most people would agree with you on that. But when you start scooping up everybody, people who've been here 40 years, 30 years with no criminal record, who run businesses, who are vital to communities in our country, it gets people to be like, wait a minute, what you doing? And because you're not focused. Focus on the main thing. And so as leaders, if you have a mission, focus on it. Don't allow mission drift. Don't get caught up trying to do too much. Even if you have good intentions, trying to do too much can water down your impact. And I think I've been studying business and some things, and I saw this podcast episode the other day, and he said he made his first $1 million off one ad to one audience that sold one product. And he was just focused on that ad, that audience, that product, and he made $1 million doing that because he was focused. And sometimes we want to make a ton of money, but we want to do everything to make it. Focus on one thing. Focus on the main thing, okay? All right. Number 2, don't be win-lose. Don't have a win-lose mindset. I think this is something that a lot of leaders can learn and can use today. You can enact this today. Don't go into confrontations. Don't go into discussions. Don't go into conversations with the ideal that I have to win and they have to lose. Because when you approach business, when you approach relationships, when you approach anything with that attitude, you burn bridges and you don't build relationships. And what leadership is the ability to leverage relationships for impact and influence. And so if your leadership is constantly you burning bridges and blowing up relationships so that you can win, right? It is really hard for you to continue to be successful. It is. Or it's really hard for you to have a large following, right? And as a leader, you want to impact as many people as possible. And so it's hard for you to have a large following because there's so many people that you've done wrong. And so you think about the person who does business, people always talk about the car salesman, the shady car salesman, the used shady car salesman, right? If he sells me a lemon, he got the money, But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get on Yelp, I'm gonna get on Google. My cousin called me, hey, I'm about to go to this lot. Which one? Don't go there. They selling lemons. Like, I'm gonna give you bad press, and you're gonna lose some business. Now you might be able to dupe somebody else, but then they gonna tell. So it's like you have to constantly, if that is your mode of business, and that's how you do relationships, you constantly have to find new people to do relationship with, because all the old people are like, nah, bro, I'm not doing nothing with you because you're not right. Like, you didn't do that right. You didn't handle that with integrity. I walked away feeling like I lost. And if somebody walks away from an interaction with you feeling like they lost, then what happens is they won't want to go into another conversation or discussion with you. And as a leader, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a long-term relationship, because we want a long-term widespread impact. And so don't have a win-lose mentality. It's not black and white. It really isn't. Most things, like immigration, it's a ton of gray and nuance. And when you take a step back and you talk to people on both sides that have, like, I just randomly talked to somebody who used to be on Border Patrol, and he was telling me his experience, and I'm like, that kind of does impact the way I see it. But I grew up in Wyandotte. I'm from KCK. I know immigrants. I know people who are here without the proper paperwork. And I know their stories and their families and how they're doing life. And when I put the two together, I realized it's not very simple. This is a nuanced issue that requires high-level leadership. And so we have to see it as a win-win. What does a win-win look like? So I want to walk away knowing that I got something, and I want you to walk away knowing you got something. And it's a win-win situation. Think about this as a marriage or a business deal. Like, even when we do business, if I sell an excellent product and you purchase it, it's a win-win. I made money for my product, and you got something that's going to impact your life for the better. That's a win-win. And you know what happens when you do business that way? I'm going to leave with this product, and I'm going to say, hey, everybody should get this product. If you have this problem, like I had this problem, get this product because I got it, or this service because I got it, and it was amazing, and I think they can help you too. And too often, I believe in our government, especially because of how divided it's become, it's always win-lose. Republicans are always trying to win at the expense of Democrats, and vice versa. Democrats are always trying to win at the expense of the Republicans. I've read some reports that one of the reasons we got to this point is the California governor doesn't want to look like he's submitting to Trump. And so Trump tries to do something in California. The governor is like, I can't let Trump do something in California. Not is what he's doing right, will what he's doing help our people, but because I am a Democratic governor in a Democratic state, I must fight against what Donald Trump is doing. Now, I don't know if that's true. I'm being honest. It's just something that I read, and I just thought the premise was interesting because it reminded me of win-lose. He can't win because if he wins, I lose. And that's a very poor way, an immature way to do business and do relationships and do leadership. Okay. And so that's something that we got to look at and think about and be better than that. So as a leader, you should be actively working towards win-win solutions. You should be working towards win-win solutions. So, for example, in this situation in LA, if I'm immigration, if I'm ICE, a win-win is I'm able to extract criminals from communities, and I honor and respect the liberties of U.S. citizens. Okay? Like, I think you can do both. You can get criminals out of places that should not be there, or people with criminal history or whatever, and you can respect the liberties of U.S. citizens. You don't have to encroach on liberties to do, you get what I'm saying? So it's a win-win. That's what you should be looking for. And the same thing for the immigrant community. If we should not be harboring criminals, and it's the same thing in the hood. Like, we know criminals in there, like, get them out of there. They're not keeping us safe. Okay. So that's win-win. All right. And the last thing, and this is probably the biggest thing that I think can impact our leadership and change the way we do it, is lead with empathy. Lead with empathy. Empathy is not weakness. In fact, there's a civilization expert, and she says that the first sign of a civilization isn't tools. It isn't cowhides or buildings. It's a healed femur. And the reason that a healed femur is a sign of civilization. And if you don't know what that is, that's like you broke your leg and on your skeleton, because when you break a bone, you keep that scar. And so when you die, we can see that that scar healed, right? And the reason that that's a sign of civilization is that means empathy is present. The ideal that someone who isn't injured would slow down and make sure that you get back to health is a sign of leadership in civilization, because you know animals don't do that. When animals are injured, especially like think about like in Africa, gazelle gets a limp. He lion food, bruh. Like we got to get up out of here. And so the ideal of getting you back healthy is a sign of civilization, and it's a sign of empathy, which means even if I'm not feeling it, I can understand what you're feeling, and I can meet you in that and help you. And that's what leadership is when you do it well, when you do it excellent. When you lead with empathy, even if you're not experiencing that situation, that issue, that problem, you can understand it and help them through it. And when we do that, I think we're able to make change that is win-win and that focuses on the main thing. I think about if I am an immigrant in this country, could I empathize with government officials being worried about illegal immigrants criminalizing their country? I think you can empathize with that ideal, right? With people sneaking into a country with ill intention and border patrol or ICE or the president trying to deal with that. I think you can understand that, right? And on the other side, if I am a politician, immigration agent, border patrol, I think you can empathize with a person who's in a situation that isn't ideal, trying to do whatever they can to get to a better one. I think on a human level, you can empathize with that. Now, what you do with that empathy is you develop policies, procedures that see people and treat them well. And one of the things that allows us to do that is the concept that Christianity has and Judaism does as well, is Imago Dei. Imago Dei. It's in Genesis. It's the ideal that we are all created in the image of God. And so because of that dignity that we have, because of the image of God we are created in, I treat you with that, with the utmost respect and dignity for someone created in the image of God. And you have to lead that way. And so I want to encourage you all, because I think that you can, I know that you can do these things. I know that you can become a great leader. I know that you can be an excellent leader. But when situations like this happen, don't get caught up in the wash. Don't just roll down river. Take a step back and engage in the conversation with wisdom and engage with the conversation with patience. One of the things that I've learned is media wants us to be quick to respond, and they post clips and thumbnails and captions to get our knee-jerk emotional response. Emotions are great indicators. They're not great planners. They're not great leaders. And so don't allow your emotions to lead the conversation. Maybe allow your emotions to spark a conversation. But as leaders, take a step back and engage in a way that is win-win, that has empathy, and that is focused. All right? I hope that you learned something. I hope that you, and honestly, because I'm not a politician, I don't be in politics, I would love for you to educate me on this. If I'm missing something, if I misspoke, drop it in the comments. I love to learn where you're coming from. I would love to learn your perspective. And until next week, man, I am out, man. I love y'all. I'm privileged. I'm honored. I hope that you got something today, and you could be anywhere on the internet. Except don't go to some places. All right, it's kind of dark. But you could be anywhere else except for hanging out with me, and I appreciate that, and I'm honored, man. Until next time, peace.